afternoon, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests. I was inspired to do interpretive reading by none other than Michael Notaro. After my 10th speech, in which I actually presented a poem that I had written, he suggested that I try the interpretive reading advanced manual, and I was kind of going, why would I do that? But I looked at it some more, and then I was like, why not? So I went ahead and I got the interpretive manual, thanks to Michael, and this is my first interpretive reading. It's from the 10th anniversary issue of Bay Nature, which is a magazine that combines two of my loves. One is the natural world, and the other is the Bay Area. It's written by John Carroll, who's a columnist for the San Francisco Chronicle. He's actually one of my favorite columnists. He's lived in Oakland and been a columnist for San Francisco Chronicle since 1982. However, he claims that the two are unrelated. The first time I saw Lemon-Tor Beach was in 1975. About 2 days after we had moved into a little timeshare cabin on Silver Hills Road outside Point Reyes Station. Tracy, the woman who would become my wife, and I did not know each other very well. The cabin had been a matter of opportunity and impulse. We knew little about Point Reyes National Seashore either. That first week we took roads mostly at random, knowing that we would eventually fetch up somewhere beautiful. On Point Reyes, all roads are the right road. We discovered that there are at least 3 types of fog at Point Reyes. One is the thick, blowy kind, almost the density of whipped cream. It turns everything into a mystery store. One perhaps titled, "Where's that landmark?" The second is the low, dense overcast, the meteorological equivalent of a bout of black depression. The third kind hangs low and still over landscape, drippy and calm, and, if you're dressed for it, infinitely romantic. As you might have guessed, we encountered Lemon-Tor in the third kind of fog. There was hardly anyone on the broad beach because of the gloomy weather. Even the gulls were muted. Each end of the sand disappeared into the mist. The beach was so featureless we had no idea which direction we were walking. It was very much like our state of mind at the time, very misty and unsure where we were going. We walked for a long time without reaching anything in particular. And then we walked back. As we were walking back to the parking lot, I saw what at first I thought was a mirage, an all-white deer in the low coastal scrub, perhaps 100 feet from where I was standing. Disappeared almost immediately. I thought perhaps I had conflated the animal out of sundry bushes and trees. At best, I decided I had seen a brown deer turn white by the fog. Then I saw it again, more clearly. It was a white deer, as real as the ground under my feet and as metaphorical as each bone. They're European deer brought to parts of this country, Texas and Georgia mostly, as game animals. Their population at Point Reyes grew rapidly, and the park has made numerous and controversial attempts to keep the deer in check through trapping, relocation, contraception, and shooting. But all this was in the future. And I was in a haze of awe. These white deer mostly live in the wilder southern end of the peninsula. I was lucky to see them at Lemon-Tor, and even luckier to see them for the first time there. white deer on a foggy day, on a quiet beach with my new sweetie. It forever linked Limantour and romance in my mind. Some years ago now, Tracy and I lived in Inverness, a tiny town on Point Reyes Peninsula. It was a golden time filled with good cheer and good company. One of our visitors was Jacques d'Amboise. He had just retired from his job as principal dancer in the New York Ballet. He was looking around for something to do, and we were trying to decide whether I'd make a good ghostwriter for him. My two daughters were utterly entranced by Jacques. He was something of a force of nature, a man of great energy and good humor. He was up before we were, preparing breakfast and entertaining the girls. In the afternoon, we'd take a walk somewhere on the point, out to the lighthouse or down to Drake's Estero, or in this case, over the hill to Limantour. It was one of those crystal Bay Area winter days. The Farallones were visible on the horizon, and Chimney Rock out by the point seemed as close as my hand. It was toward sunset, and the broad beach was still well populated by strollers and kite flyers. Jacques suddenly had an idea. He often suddenly had ideas. He wanted to teach our daughters, then 7 and 11, the Wizard of Oz dance. You know the one, Dorothy and the Scarecrow, and the Tin Man, and the Lion. Or off to see the Wizard, the Wonderful Wizard of Oz. And they were dancing down the yellow brick road all happy. So he stood between my daughters, took their hands and said, "This dance is so easy." Dances were always easy to Jacques. And off they went down the sands of Limantour, into the setting sun, skipping and singing and disappearing into the dusk. I just stood and stared. It was a moment of unalloyed joy. The last time I saw Limantour was 2 weeks ago. I'm a bit older now. My enthusiasm for walking up sand dunes has decreased somewhat. I was with my granddaughter, who is now 9. This was the second time she had been to Limantour, and she enjoyed playing tag with the waves as much as my children had. Seaweed had washed up on the beach that day, and I found a particularly splendid example, a 12-foot-long whip-like brown bull kelp with a giant bulb. I began twirling it around, first at knee level, and then higher, until with some effort, I had it going over my head. I had to turn my whole body to keep it going, and I got dizzy pretty quickly. I sat down on the sand to regain my balance. But Tracy had a great idea and spun the seaweed like a gargantuan jump rope so our granddaughter could jump over it. Almost immediately, I took the other end, and we created a giant, ungainly jump rope. Tracy, seeking firmer footing, went down to the water's edge, thus leading the squealing grandchild into the shallow water. She jumped and jumped, and we twirled and twirled, while one part of me was hefting the giant seaweed, another part was standing at a distance, watching the whole thing, delighted to be part of the experience, happy to be alive, happy to be home, happy to enjoy yet another day on my favorite beach. And it all happened at Limantour. Could have happened somewhere else, but it didn't. And